Hey everybody, welcome back to our class. So today we are going to focus on your simple subjects, simple predicates, and your direct objects. So then we're also going to show you how to diagram those three things. We're not going to go into diagramming the whole sentence, but those three things. So the simple subject is the word or words in what the sentence is talking about, or maybe that clause is talking about. Now, your simple predicate, they're your verbs. Your helping verbs or your along with your action verb. Now, I always tell my children or anybody that I'm tutoring or in my co-op classes, I say you need to memorize your verbs. So you have your be verbs and you have your linking verbs and you have your helping verbs, and some of them are all of the same. So the be verbs are am, is, are, was, were, be, being, been. I would memorize those. Those are also helping verbs and linking verbs depending on how it falls in the sentence. Now, I'm going to say all of the helping verbs. These are just going to be helping verbs, and they are the same as be verbs, but I'm going to say they are helping for right now. So we have am, is, are, was, were, be, being, been, have, has, had, do, does, did, shall, will, should, would, may, might, must, can, and could. So those are your helping verbs. And now we have our direct objects. Now, it's really important to understand your direct objects because there are words that sit in the object position, and if you do not know what the object position is, then you won't be able to put that word correctly in there. And so that's why sometimes I'm sure a lot of people are like, who cares about the direct object? Who cares if I even know that? Well, it does matter because let's say only nouns and pronouns and anything acting as a noun. So it could be a clausal, but it has to act it as the noun. It could be a phrase, but it has to act as a noun, and then it sits on a tree in your diagram. But it has to be in the noun position or a pronoun. So let's say, for instance, the word whom. If you don't know, that word can only sit in an object position, and if you don't know the object positions in your sentences, then you won't be able to place that word properly, and you'll be going, is it who or is it whom that I should be using? And so anyways, that's why it's important to understand your object positions, and there's different object positions in sentences. Okay, so now we're going to focus on diagramming. Okay, now we're going to focus on this first sentence. Now, I always read a sentence first before I diagram, and we are right now, this is how you kind of figure out your subject and your verb. Your main line comes directly through here. So this is the only time you'll have a line that comes straight through, and this tells you everything over here is your subject and everything over here is your predicate. Okay, so now let's look at this one. I see the shining stars. I always read the whole sentence first because when you don't read the whole sentence, you make mistakes on your diagramming. So here is really easy. We're going to find our verb. So let's find it. You always ask the question, what did it do? What's the did in this? So, well, let's ask. Is I diding or doing or anything? Well, no. So did I see something? Yeah. That see is the did, right? So we're going to circle that. Boom. That's our verb. Well, now find your subject. Who is doing the seeing? Well, I'm doing the seeing. Most of the time your verbs are on this side, not always, especially in questions. But who's doing the seeing? Well, I am doing the seeing. So now, see, it goes on your verb line right here, and then this is your subject line. I see, right? So, well, now how you find your direct object is you ask the question, who received what the seeing is doing? The direct object is receiving what the see is doing. Okay, so did the receive see? No, that's silly. Did shining receive see? No. Did the stars receive the seeing? Did we see the stars? So we have our direct object. So this is how you find your you put your direct object. This line right here says, oh, that's a direct object right off the bat. You know, if you're seeing a diagram like this, you know that that line indicates that there's a direct object in this sentence. Okay, so now those are, in that sentence, that is the main part of the sentence, I see stars. See how it totally makes sense? Just by putting those together, you don't have all of your other adjectives and things in that sentence. Now let's look at the next sentence. All right, so let's first off find our verb again. And I'll always look and start asking the did. What did it do? Well, did we silently? No. Did we rain? No. Did we drop? Yeah. See how it's doing something? It drops, right? Okay, so let's put our diagram out and we drop. We're gonna put that on our verb line, okay? Well, let's ask the question, well, what drops? The rain drops, right? So that is our subject line. Well, let's find to see if we have a direct object. Okay, what's receiving the drops? Is on receiving the drops? The receiving the drops? Is glimmering receiving the drops? Is flowers receiving the drops? No. This could be confusing because it might look like flowers is receiving the drops, but it's not. This right here is a prepositional phrase, and this is the object of the preposition of on. So often, that's why it's so important to also memorize your prepositions, or at least most of them, because boom, right off the bat, I have my kids cross those out. So if they can find all of their prepositions in a sentence, they can just cross them out and say, oh, okay, now I can find my subject and verb. So this is all crossed out, and we can see we only have raindrops. Okay, so we have a simple subject and a simple predicate right here. Now, this one is a really fun a sentence that lots of you know. This is what Jesus said, as I have loved you, love one another. So now look at this word, as, and this comma right here. This indicates that something else is coming. As I have loved you. See, this is a dependent clause because as I have loved you can't stand alone because what doesn't even make sense? Well, as I've loved you what? So you needed this independent sentence to make this sentence make sense. So let's see if we take off as right here. I have loved you. If so, this is the starting of a clausal, okay? So if you take it off, you have a sentence, you could put a period there and you wouldn't need it. So this would be its very own independent clause if it didn't have as. But it does. So since that is dependent on this to make sense, we're going to start with this clause right here, this independent clause. So now let's find your verb. This is a really easy sentence clause. So let's find the verb. What did they do? Well, they loved, right? Well, they love. Okay. Well, who loves? There's nothing here. Who loves? You love. This is assumed. Okay. So you put it in parentheses if you're assuming who's doing the loving. Now, well, who's receiving the love? One another. That is receiving the love, right? So we have our verb here with this is assumed, and then it's one another. So now let's go over into our independent clause. Now our as and our adverb clause is connecting because adverbs describe verbs. So we're going to connect the verbs together, okay? And we're going to start our next clause. Now this is our dependent clause, depending on our independent clause. And this one has a helping verb. So I have loved have loved, okay? So we put those on the verb line. Okay, well, who have loved? I have loved, right? Jesus he's doing the loving, right? And then we ask, so this is your verb right here. And we're saying, well, who's doing the loving? I am doing the loving. So now, well, let's ask the question, who received the love? Well, you received the love. So we know that that's the direct object because it's you, right? So we put you over here. Now see, look at this. The line all the way comes through is your subject. This is all in your predicate. So your direct object will sit in your predicate position. So that's how you kind of start out. And we'll show you different ways on how to diagram. Now also, not always will the same sentence be diagrammed because grammatarians don't always agree. But this is your basic idea. These are your basic simple sentences, and that's how you would do that. So anyways, I hope to see you in the next lesson. Take care.